Hello everyone and welcome to Climate Australia. My name is Lee Constable and I'm your host. I'd like to start by acknowledging the land on which I am broadcasting to you today. I am broadcasting to you from the land of the Turrbal and Yugara people. I'd like to acknowledge them and the Gubbi Gubbi people to the north. And as traditional owners, I'd like to acknowledge elders past and present and also the ongoing relationship that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people across what we now call Australia have with land, sea and sky. Today I have the topic of climate comms, but put in a different way than you may be expecting. We're talking about ethical climate comms and being an ethical person in marketing, PR, and all things media when it comes to climate. So my two guests today are the perfect people to talk to us about that. They are the co-founders of Comms Declare. We have Cali Jackson and Belinda Noble, and I'll just tell you a little bit about them before I invite them to the screen. Cali Jackson is a communication leader with more than 15 years of experience across the corporate, government and non-profit sectors. She currently works as the Marketing and Communications Manager at a not-for-profit research centre in the disability sector. She's also the mother of 2 young children and has become increasingly concerned about the lack of action being taken to address the climate emergency. Inspired by Engineers Declare and being a strong believer in the power of communication, marketing, media and advertising, Cali decided to establish Comms Declare with Belinda Noble, who has a career which started in TV news, where she worked as a reporter, foreign correspondent and supervising producer in Australia and overseas for outlets such as Channel 9, Channel 10, ITN, Al Jazeera and BSkyB. Sorry, I was going to read that as BSKYB. She's been working in corporate comms for almost a decade, including as head of media and communications at Australian Red Cross and the head of her own consultancy, Be Noble Communications. So Belinda also has experience from volunteering for Zali Steggall's campaign to oust notable climate denier and ex-PM Tony Abbott. She was traumatised by the Black Summer bushfires and prioritised climate action over her other work. And so I will now welcome these 2 amazing women, co-founders of Comms Declare, to the screen. Welcome Belinda and Cali. Hi.
Hello. Thanks for having us.
My absolute pleasure. Now, Belinda, I'll let you go first in explaining, in a nutshell, what is Comms Declare?
Thank you. So as you said, we're pretty traumatised by the Black Summer, and I think for a lot of people in the city, that was the first time we really had seen the climate crisis, firsthand. Choking smoke, not being able to breathe. I knew people that were evacuated. My mother was in a town that was evacuated, and I just thought then, absolutely have to do something. So what are my skills? My skills are PR and journalism. That's all I know. So how can I put that to use in addressing this issue? So came up with my own idea. I wrote an opinion piece in the Sydney Morning Herald calling on people in the PR industry to stop spruiking fossil fuels. And then I discovered Cali on Twitter and she had the same idea. So that was fabulous. We've never actually met in person. I'm in Sydney, she's in Brisbane. So we've been doing this for a year and we've never actually met.
Yeah, I suppose
we'll get there.
I mean, trust 2 people with the backgrounds that you've got to be able to communicate with each other across a pandemic over the last year to found something like Comms Declare. That's quite the feat in and of itself in any year.
So our general ask is that people who are working in PR, media, communications say that they will not support the growth of fossil fuels, high greenhouse gas emissions as business as usual, or deception or spin around climate. That's our baseline. Obviously, understanding that a lot of people, work with high greenhouse gas emissions industries for good reasons, but also recognizing that PR and advertising has absolutely not been on the right side of history on this issue. We've gone with the money, the tobacco and the big fossil fuel companies, and in fact, PR and advertising grew up with those businesses, and developed what we know now as PR for those businesses. So we want to change that, and we want people to take responsibility for the emissions that they help create through promoting these companies.
Yeah, and so Cali, you had independently come up with the same idea. Where did the motivation for this come from for you?
So for me, it was I watched engineers declare come to life, and I just thought, what a fantastic idea, and how important it would be for something like that to exist for the communication, marketing and advertising industries, because of the power of our industries in controlling the conversation and the overall culture in which we live. So I waited for a while thinking that I'd see it pop up, and I didn't, and I was like, well, you know what? I'm just going to do it. I'll just give it a try, and hopefully, I'll be honest, I didn't really know initially where it would lead, but I thought, step into the unknown and ask people who share my concerns within the industry to step up to the plate and declare that they will be on the right side of history, as Belinda said. And then I was only a short way into getting all set up, and had a handful of people who had declared when, as Belinda said, we stumbled across each other on Twitter, which Belinda attended the Climate Emergency Summit that was held last year in Melbourne, and she was tweeting using the hashtag, and I saw her tweets and went, oh, that looks very similar, and so we tweeted back and forth, and then we jumped on the phone and joined forces. So
wow.
And it's yes, that, and it's definitely a big team effort, and beyond just Belinda and myself as well. There are many people working behind the scenes on and all voluntarily to achieve the aims of Comms Declare.
Yeah, and I just got this slideshow rolling with some of the images there. It's interesting having to walk this line, I imagine, between, we're not anti-mining or anti-business, we're anti-fossil fuel growth. How have you found people have received that? I mean, we're now going to all of the different members that you have. Why do you think, I'll go to you, Belinda, why do you think people have, in this list here, have been actually motivated to say yes?
Well, like Cali and I, who predominantly work in not-for-profit, I think the agencies that have joined us are very much rooted in ethical practice and sustainable business. They know the opportunities that are coming. It's not all altruistic, of course. There's big money coming into clean energy, as you'd be all too aware, and the transition is happening now. And they're well positioned to profit from that because of their focus on sustainability and ethics, much like B Corps are. So that's the kind of agency and the kind of practitioner that have joined us. But yeah, it is a really difficult line because particularly if you're looking at the big lobby groups like the Minerals Council, for example, they represent, gold miners and tin miners, but they also represent fossil fuels. So it's really hard to make that distinction. And we do try and run that line of, always being respectful. And, we're not anti-mining at all. But it's, we just can't keep digging up coal and oil. It's just not sustainable.
Yeah, and Cali, when we had a chat about Comms Declare and kind of there were also kind of barriers or questions, I guess, things that people have that they're not sure about, or things that make it easier for some people to declare than others. What sort of challenges are there to people and organisations signing up?
Well, as Belinda said, I think that it's easier for those who already have nothing to do with the industries involved to declare, and that in itself is powerful, because that demonstrates that there is a sizable number of people in our industry who really care about this issue and see the moral implications of our choices. And so that hopefully puts pressure on those who are choosing to use their powers not for the good of the climate.
Yeah.
But then when you move further into the realm of the resources industry, for example, it can be really hard to know where the line is drawn in terms of, so if I'm working for a company and I'm working on a sustainable project, but I know that that the company has its main business model is actually extracting and selling fossil fuels. Can I declare because I'm working in this part of the business, or is that? And unfortunately, in that instance, I say unfortunately, but in that instance, the person wouldn't be able to sign the declaration, because if the main line of business of a company is extracting fossil fuels, and you're promoting the 1%, and that's what's getting all of the airtime, rather than what is bringing in all of the profits, then that essentially equates to greenwashing. So that's one of the things that we are trying to point out and really are trying to tackle through Comms Declare.
Yeah, because if you don't draw that line, then potentially it could call into question everyone who's declared and Comms Declare itself. I've just got a very excited Mark Spencer who's in our live audience. So we are streaming in Simpatico TV on Facebook and YouTube. Mark says, "Woo, been looking forward to this." At the start, but he also he said, "Why does anyone with ethics want to work or find longevity working in marketing? Not snarky, I swear." But he followed up with, "What kind of early support did Comms Declare get from outside the two of you?"
Well, early support, I would say, it really has come down to individuals who and quite a number of individuals behind the scenes working on furthering the projects that we had, and I wouldn't. And then as we have progressed, we have had a number of people use their position within organisations. For example, when we did we commissioned, I guess you could say, unpaid commissioned a survey of the communication industry, and so that was all provided in kind through communicate or agencies who have declared. Do you have anything else you want to add to that, Belinda?
Well, everything's early because we're still only a year young, but yeah, it really has just been volunteers. We don't take donations. We're not incorporated or anything like that. So it's 100% goodwill, and there is a lot of goodwill. I mean, you can say in marketing communications they're not ethical.
There's an incredible amount of goodwill.
I should share this screen at this point.
Our survey showed of the 200 top agencies in the country, it showed that 67% of those that answered, and there were 77 that answered, are committed to net zero by 2040. Mm-hmm. So there is a lot of enthusiasm. So we've just got to tap into that as much as possible.
Yeah, and fingers crossed we'll see that enthusiasm ramp. And I think probably even since I was talking to you both originally last year, we've seen enthusiasm and targets ramp when it comes to private sector in certain areas and certain sectors that we may not have expected. Now, I'm just going to show the website here for Comms Declare. There's the guide to ethical communications for anyone who's watching, who's feeling like they might want to know more about that, which is on the website. But also, I've been wanting to and meaning to sign up to Declare as someone who is a communicator and in kind of entertainment, media, communications. I mean, it's all blurred together in there, isn't it?
Very blurred. Science communicator.
Yeah. I've been meaning to sign up. So we thought, why not show people how to declare? So this is where you actually click here at the top, declare. Here's one I prepared earlier. This is just like a smooth cooking show. So basically you just put your details in here, and then I can say climate justice now, or something more heartfelt. It's up to you. I can also say I want to act. Now, this is something that I wanted to ask you both about. Cali, would you mind telling us what the difference is between this declare and act part? Because I know you've got aware, declare, act.
Absolutely. So we do try to take our members on a bit of a journey, and also to meet people where they're at. So some people may just want to declare and say that they won't promote the growth of fossil fuels or high emission industries, and have that as that's that, and then move on with their lives and stay engaged, but not necessarily be hugely involved. ACT is for those individuals who are keen to be more involved, and not necessarily just within Comms Declare, but to use whatever channels they have available to them to spread the message of urgency, and encourage others to act, while also spreading the messages and examples of hope, of the wonderful case studies that exist of people and companies and governments taking action around the world, so that we can collectively demonstrate that this is possible, we can do it, so let's all get in and do it together. So that's the intention of having declare and act. And when people say that they will act, that also says that they will also take actions within their personal life to reduce their own carbon footprint. So they're the two levels. And then, of course, for those who want to be just absolutely sterling, that's where our guide to ethical communications comes in. It's certainly not required to be able to comply with that to a T to declare, but that's our examples of best practice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it is something that's really difficult if you've not thought about it, even to start with, ethics and what that means to you and the work you do, or even who you accept as a client. I wanted to bring up the issue or the topic of freelancing, because we've got this changing landscape of media and communications, and we've obviously even pre-pandemic had jobs going out the door as far as secure jobs for people in a lot of these roles, whether it be in journalism and media and PR and comms, and people going freelance. Do you think that it gives people extra, I guess, extra power to say yes and no when they're independent, or less power because, you know, you have to pay the bills, and so if your client is a fossil fuel company, so be it?
I guess it could be both. It depends on the amount of business that the person is able to find, and so if business is plentiful, then I would say that there are then it absolutely would empower people to be able to say, no, I am not. I'm not interested in doing any of that work. This is where I draw the line,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what we want people to do and say. We recognise that people need to pay their bills, and sometimes not everybody will be in a position to be able to declare, and perhaps those people can work from within, because we do also need people who are who understand the urgency of the situation, to be working within the organisations that are currently not on the path to helping create a climate safe future. So
Yeah.
I think that it's but I do definitely see the challenges for freelancers, and but encourage everybody to put their principles as high, to hold their principles tight, and do the best that they can.
Yeah, and I mean, sometimes I know I've spoken to other science and environment sustainability presenters, and they kind of said to me, oh, sometimes the things I say no to are just as valuable to my reputation as the things I say yes to. And that's really something that struck me in thinking about what I say no to and yes to, and things like that. And I think that, fingers crossed, we are seeing more and more companies looking for ethical influencers and ethical public voices out there. When we have a lot of people, even as individual social media influencers, saying yes to any old brand, it really has become more valuable, I think, lately. So we've been talking about that kind of calling in. Belinda, I wanted to see first of all, if you have anything to add to what we've already been discussing, but also I wanted to ask you about the different roles that calling in and calling out can play when it comes to public comms and climate crisis.
So the thing about insecure work, I think, is massive, because particularly in journalism, wages in journalism haven't gone up in 20 years. Like it's shocking, and you can't speak out about something that might be difficult for your boss to hear when you could be sacked tomorrow and replaced. It's a really big issue, I think, insecure work. And of course, similarly for advertising and PR, it's not highly paid if you're in the junior ranks in particular, and it's very insecure work, as we've seen in COVID as well. So I think it is a thing. people won't speak up when they're not secure in the future.
Yeah.
So the opt-in and opt-out, is that what you meant in terms of, you said calling in and calling out? I'm not quite sure what you mean by that.
Oh, I mean, we have kind of one side which is encouraging companies not necessarily doing the right thing or doing a mixture of ethical and unethical work, and calling them in, versus the other side of things, which is, hey, you're not doing the right thing, and letting everyone know kind of which is the other side of things.
Yeah, okay. So obviously you need, thanks. I refer to that as in the tent and out of the tent. So
okay, yeah.
Well, call them into the tent.
Yeah, call them into the tent, or let everyone know that they're outside the tent.
Yeah, look, I get my inspiration from the divestment movement in many respects, because that's been so successful, and the finance investment world is really leading climate action in so many ways, along with the insurance industries, because, like I said, that they know that's where the money is, and they know how to handle risk, how to assess risk properly. So that involves calling out, and I think we've seen that work really, really successfully. I mean, you're talking about influencers. There was the Jemena Go With Gas, I think it was, influencers campaign, where they had people meditating around a gas barbecue, because they said that the natural flame was good for women's well-being.
That's the thing that's made possible by gas.
Yeah, it's made possible by gas. That's another one.
Because the branding of gas is natural gas.
Natural gas, yeah. So they're pretending it's good for women's health because the gas has a flame which is meant to be calming. So that was a complete nonsense bit of PR that went across all these influencers, and also morning TV. And there was a backlash against that. It was picked up by a couple of publications like Renew Economy, got into The Guardian, and people were taking the piss of those ads, and they're all quickly removed from Instagram. So that, I think particularly that's a big and growing area, because you are talking about your reputation. If you're an influencer and you're saying gas is great, then I'm sorry, then you deserve to be called out.
If you're not doing your due diligence as well, it kind of shows that you're not actually taking the time to figure out what's behind the things you're saying yes to.
Yeah, that's right, which obviously a lot of people don't, because there's a lot of education that needs to go into the fact that gas, might be natural, but, so is arsenic, and just doesn't necessarily mean it's good.
And I think that sorry, you keep going, Belinda, and then I'll. I was just going to say that I think that the gas extractors are doing everything that they can at present to paint themselves as a huge part of the solution rather than a huge part of the problem. Mm-hmm. So if you are new to the area, and all you did was visited, say, Santos's website, for example, you may become very convinced that yes, these guys, they're leaders in. That's how they describe themselves. They are leaders in this area. They're leading the charge to net zero by 2040 for gas. However, and their product is gas, but what they don't say is that net zero by 2040 is only through the production of actually getting that gas out of the ground. It's not actually got anything to do with burning that gas, and their ability to actually even achieve net zero for getting it out of the ground is also questionable.
You can't lead the charge if you're dragging your feet, can you?
Exactly. And so I think that the people behind those websites who are creating those websites are ideally the people that would be most beneficial to declare, to realise that that their they're actually distorting and miscommunicating the truth of the impacts on climate change, and what we know will actually make a difference in the energy space, which is an urgent shift to renewable energy. So so they're the people that we would love to welcome into the tent.
Because unfortunately, they're doing a great job. Like, unfortunately, they're so good at their job that, I mean, while that might have been pulled now, it may not have been, even 5 years ago. There's been quite a history of greenwashing, and Belinda, I know you linked me to a couple of examples, including Origin Energy now, but what has greenwashing kind of looked like before and now? Does it need to be more sneaky now, or is it just as easy to do?
Yeah, it is more sneaky in a nutshell, because first we had denial, which went really well for them for about 10, 15 years, and that's gone, fabulous. So now everyone's part of the solution, like Cali was saying, except they're not. So ClimateWorks and Monash, who I'm sure you're aware with, have looked at the top resources companies in Australia, and none of them are on track to meet their net zero promises. And that's of the ones that have actually made net zero promises.
And that's their own promise, not the best case scenario,
that's
isn't it?
Everyone's got a promise, and it's increasingly difficult to find out whether that's costed, whether it's realistic, whether it's relying on technology that doesn't exist yet, like large-scale carbon capture, whether it includes all greenhouse gases or just carbon. The list goes on and on and on. If it's scope 1, 2, 3 or not, usually not in the resources sector. So you really need to do some detective work to find out whether they're telling porkies or not. And it's really good to, really easy to say net zero, but I really think that's the future, just drilling into that sort of thing to find out how true it's going to be.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you, Belinda, as well, the thing about porkies is also a bit harder when the porkies of the energy industry look exactly the same as the porkies of politicians. Having worked, against one of the most prominent politician climate deniers, are they comparing notes? Are they on the phone constantly? Is this a coincidence? As some or people are just like, oh well, they're both singing the same tune because it's true. I think is what some more naive people than me might think out there.
Yeah, look, that's such a good question. And I think there is, if you've read The Carbon Club by Marion Wilkinson, it paints a really great picture of that little centre of influence from the US, that it's the politics that's exported from the US with the Tea Party and the Koch brothers and stuff like that. And they've brought it over here and they've used climate as a political issue when beforehand it wasn't. It was bipartisan, and they've used it for political reasons, and that's why we're in this stupid trough that Australia's in right now. So do they talk to each other? Sure. I would say just in Warringah, which was Tony Abbott's electorate, one of the big critics of Zali Steggall and her climate policies was Andrew Bolt, who was also on the hustings with Tony Abbott, going door to door and knocking on doors for him. So there's definitely a nexus of the conservative politicians, of the IPA, of the and obviously the News Corp, the News Corp opinion writers, and potentially other people in News Corp.
Yeah, and I suppose I just want to know, given that, we're already at 35 minutes-ish, and reminding everyone to get your questions in before I have to let Belinda and Cali go about their many things they have to do, not only in their day job, but also in their night jobs. Yes, please put your questions in. I do see one that I will get to from Mark. I wanted to ask Cali, what's kind of next for Comms Declare? Like, what are the big goals that you want to be able to kind of work towards now?
Well, we have some ambitious goals of really increasing our membership numbers by the end of the year. I actually don't have the numbers handy off the top. There we go, 240 agencies and 480 creatives. So we will be reaching out to everybody that we possibly can. That's those targets are essentially 3.5% of the industry, working off the social theory that's the percentage of of whatever the target group is that you need to achieve change. So that's what we are working on. We would also, another goal is, as Belinda said, most of those who have declared thus far are not-for-profits, B Corps, which is fantastic, and also a lot of smaller independent agencies. We would dearly love to secure the declarations of some of the larger agencies. So we will be brainstorming and putting our heads together as to how we can go about achieving that, and celebrities, if there are, because everybody, we all know the power of celebrity and the amount of people that we could reach if they were willing to lend their name and voice to an excellent cause. So if you're a celebrity watching Climate Australia, come and talk to us.
Many do, I'm sure. They've been quiet about it, but I'm sure there's plenty of celebs.
Yes.
Get on the phone, Chris Hemsworth.
That's right. Or Russell Crowe. He likes to talk climate. So Russell, if you're interested, give us a call.
Which awards was it that he used to talk about the Black Summer? Was it the Oscars? Or
I think so. I think it was the Oscars.
Yeah, it was, and he did that amazing video for the appeal for the bushfires, where he explained the difference between weather and climate, and coming from him at a time like that, I think was fantastic.
Yeah, and we saw Yale Stone of Orange is the New Black fame decide to move back to Australia from the States because she wanted to reduce her emissions. She said, I can't keep living this life and doing this career that's, flying between the two. So she's been someone I've seen doing some climate related talks lately. So
and she was on Q&A, wasn't she, with Michael Mann, and when the climate scientist Michael Mann, and I can remember because there was also that fabulous senator who Michael Mann told to don't be so open-minded that your brains fall out. This is a great line.
Yeah, I think that is how open-minded you need to be to the fossil fuel industry. It has to be that open, doesn't it? Otherwise it doesn't make sense. Thanks so much to everyone who's been watching on Simpatico TV, on Facebook and YouTube. I will go to this question we had a little earlier from Mark Spencer. How often do climate groups come to you for help with their comms? How would you rate the quality of climate environmental comms? I'm assuming he means in Australia. And finally, what advice, gee, Mark, you're getting all your questions in. And finally, what advice would you give another new industry declare group like Podcasters Declare that Mark has just started to get podcasters to declare, and also ask Apple to have a climate change category, given that they have true crime and all sorts of other things, but no climate. So first one, how often do climate groups come to you to help with their comms, or what do you see as the quality of climate and environment comms in Australia?
We do get people asking us, and I think there's definitely a market there for small NGOs that can't afford communications people to help them out, and I often refer them to some of member agencies who have the capacity and as part of their work help out and do pro bono work.
Yep.
So in terms of climate environmental comms, I think getting a lot better and working together is really important, and I've seen more of that recently, because obviously the fossil fuel lobby and the government are on the same page, lockstep. They are relentless. Like, I've only been watching this stuff for a year and I'm just gobsmacked. They do not let up. They are on every platform all the time with the same 1, 2, 3 core messages. And of course it's, and they've been doing it for decades. So to try and counter that takes a lot of coordination with all the different groups, I think. And I think the other important thing to note is we need to be talking to conservatives, and we need to be talking to people who are unsure about climate issues, not the converted. So, for NGOs, I would say that's your sweet spot, going for people who are unsure, who think it's an issue but don't really know the details, need a bit more education, and also conservatives, because obviously most progressives are already in the tent. You need to speak to the people from the other side of politics.
Yeah, totally. And finally, Cali, do you have any advice for Mark in starting Podcasters Declare?
Well, firstly, I'd just like to say good on you, Mark, for getting out there and doing it. It's a fun ride. In terms of advice, I would one thing that I have found incredibly useful is not being afraid to just cold contact people who you think would be interested. What's the worst that they can say? The worst they can say is no. And I think that even if people are not in a position right now where they might be able to declare or join, you have potentially planted a seed in another mind about considering the implications of their work in the greater world in which we live. So don't be afraid to. I have been known to sit there with a glass of wine on a Thursday night on LinkedIn and send quite a few messages to people I've never met, inviting them to declare, and it has been quite successful. So
that's awesome.
The other thing that I would say is a new platform has recently been launched called Communitea, and they are basically trying to connect organisations who want to offer pro bono work with worthy causes. So it might be worthwhile to check that out and have Podcasters Declare listed as a cause on Communitea. It is, and I would also just say, we feel you. It is really challenging to get enough resources to really drive these wonderful initiatives. But however much you put in, it's absolutely worth it.
And I think there's also an opportunity in that audience that you spoke about that know it's a concern but aren't quite sure what to do. There's a lot of podcasters who may not podcast about anything climate related who I'm sure feel like, I'm podcasting about The Bachelor, but I do care about climate change. I'd love to do something, and you never know who's out there. How much does FOMO play a part if you're like, well, so-and-so's actually on board? Do you use that to your advantage?
That's why we need Russell.
Yes, totally.
I think it definitely helps the more high-profile individuals you have, and the more reputable, enviable organisations as well. So when we come back to high profile social influencers, now that you've declared, Lee, we will just be going from strength to strength.
Oh, look at me go. I don't know if I'm a high profile influencer yet with the following I've got on Instagram. It's a bit woeful, but I'll do my best. I'll get in there amongst the models.
You're in the double, you're in the, the tens of thousands on Twitter, so getting up there.
Getting up there. Yeah, it's interesting to see that, because the visibility could be just awareness and visibility alone, but I think we're seeing more and more campaigns out there that are visible and then kind of backing it up with these other things that are about the broader issue and what we can do. So thanks so much for coming on to Climate Australia and chatting to us all about Comms Declare. Before I let you go, who should take a look and declare? Who are you after in all those groups? Belinda, do you want to go first?
Who are we after? Well, we're after numbers first and foremost, so I don't want to dissuade anyone. Anyone who's in the communications industries, as Cali said, the more high profile, so much the better, and particularly creatives. Creatives are kind of the rock stars in the ad agencies, and they hold a lot of sway. So very keen on creatives, filmmakers, journalists. PR people, come on board.
And outside Australia as well as inside, or just focusing on Australia for now?
We focus on Australia, but we don't, and the majority of our members are Australian, but we certainly don't discourage anyone from outside Australia to join. And we do have a number of like a handful or so of international members. I guess most of the news that we share is primarily Australia centric. So, but we absolutely welcome anyone, anywhere to declare.
Great. Yeah, I thought I'd say that because we do have some people in the US watching right now, and this recording will be available on the Climate Australia channel on Simpatico TV for anyone to watch back after the fact, find out more, and of course go to commsdeclare.org to check out all the details. Thank you so much, Cali, and thank you, Belinda. Really appreciate your time, and I'll let you get on with your busy lives.
Thanks so much for having us.
And thanks for declaring. That means a lot. Cheers.
Yes.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you both so much. So
add your name to the site straight away.
I have to add my name to the site straight away. Thanks,
oh no,
Cali.
that's my job.
Oh.
So you've declared, so I have to go into the back end to add your name.
Well, look out for that, everyone. Thanks, Cali. And you'll be able to see my name on Comms Declare's website because I do declare that I do not want to do any comms for fossil fuel companies, nor do I want to propel them forth when we need the opposite at the moment. Thanks for joining me on Climate Australia. Of course, this will be able to be watched back after the fact, and check out everything that we've been talking about at commsdeclare.org, and I'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.